Conversation with the Candidate continues.
Welcome back to Conversation with the Candidate and our candidate this evening, Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. We have our Town Hall of New Hampshire voters here to continue this conversation, and we're going to get right into it with Gary Evans.
Hi, welcome to New Hampshire.
Hi.
I have the question of the day, I think. With almost 40,000 gun deaths a year in the United States, a mass shooting every other week, every other developed country in the world doesn't have this issue. So what would you do to do something about it?
It's long overdue that Washington took action to pass sensible gun safety legislation. This is not about infringing on people's Second Amendment rights. It's about putting responsible safety regulations in place so that we're making sure our community and our families and our society is safe. I think there are a number of other issues that we need to address. One is dealing with the lack of mental health services across our country, but also really I think what's at the heart of this is how further and further our country is being divided. When we see racism and bigotry being fomented, pitting one side against the other, we see how identity politics are being used for the purposes of furthering political interests or campaigns. It's tearing our country apart. That's further fueling this animosity and people who lack compassion and empathy for their fellow Americans. So we need to make sure that Congress passes this legislation. We've got to come together as a country to do so. I think the legislation, I believe, that was recently passed here or will be passed soon, closing some of the loopholes and background checks, is the kind of thing that we need to do, again, that has the support of most Americans across the country. But ultimately, we've got to come together in order to accomplish that and recognize this is within all of our interests, because no one wants to see their loved one go shopping at Walmart and wonder whether or not they'll come home. No one wants to send their kid off to school in the morning and wonder if they'll come home. So this is something that we've got to come together on as a country and overcome the hyper-partisan divides that have stood in the way of progress for far too long.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Gary. Quick follow-up there, Congresswoman. The Second Amendment.
Yes.
A lot of Democrats are questioning whether that still serves a purpose here in this modern era of mass shootings. What's your opinion on that?
I support the Second Amendment. I think just like with the First Amendment, however, there have to be sensible regulations in place for the safety of our society. So just like with the First Amendment, you're not allowed to yell fire in a crowded theater. That would put other people at risk. We want to make sure with the Second Amendment we're protecting people's rights and freedoms, but doing so in a way that does not put other people at risk.
Okay, next question comes from James Allmendinger.
Welcome to the Granite State.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure, or I hope you would agree with me, that climate change is real.
Yes.
That it is a result of human activity, and that it is a serious threat to us all. What would you do to make climate change a priority in the 2020 presidential election?
Thank you. Thank you for your question and raising this issue. And I agree with you. This is something that hits very close to home for us and people from my home state in Hawaii, because we're the most remote island chain in the world. And as such, things like climate change are very concerning. As such, the protection just of our natural resources, our beautiful home, is something that is not just a political talking point. This is about our lives. This is about our culture. And it is necessary for us to do all that we can to protect it. We know that climate change is a threat that we've got to address through aggressive and ambitious actions to get us off of fossil fuels, to make it so we're ending the nearly $30 billion in subsidies we're still giving to these fossil fuel companies who are making massive profits, and instead take our taxpayer dollars and invest it in building a green renewable energy economy, in training a workforce, in investing in our infrastructure, and looking at our agriculture system in this country and how it's contributing more carbon to the environment, and looking to see how can we do this in a more sustainable way that is protecting our soil so that we're growing healthy food to feed people and protecting our environment as well. But you know as well as I do that even if we do all of this now, even if we carry out legislation like the one I've introduced, the Off Fossil Fuels Act, that will help us accomplish this, it's a global challenge and require working with leaders of other countries. And this is where foreign policy is inseparable from domestic policy. As president, the kind of leadership I'll bring is a foreign policy that's focused on cooperation rather than conflict, working with other countries, being able to de-escalate tensions with other countries like China so that we can work out our differences, whether it's related to trade or security, but work together on issues like climate change that really serve this common interest that we have as people who share this planet so that we can make sure we have a future for our kids and their kids and generations to come.
Thank you. That
Thank
would be
you.
a welcome change.
Yes,
Thank you, James. Next question comes from Deborah Stuke.
Good morning.
Morning, how are you?
Many of us moderates have felt stuck in a broken two-party system with opposing agendas. We feel like the politicians are prevented from working together because the parties have their goals.
Right.
And I want to know, what about the middle ground?
Yeah.
Every time a party gains control, legislation is reversed and the country is turned upside down. How will you work with the other side on hot-button issues?
Thank you. This is such an important question because it's necessary for all of these things that we're talking about, whether it's gun safety or climate change or immigration reform or economic reform, tax policy. Every aspect of our lives thus far is impacted by the inability of leaders in Washington to work together for the good of the people, to put the people's interests ahead of their own partisan interests. This is something that I saw very quickly when I was first elected to Congress back in 2012, where within the first few days, maybe the first week or so, we had 84 new members of Congress elected, 50 Democrats, the rest were Republicans. And, we got to know each other in those first couple of days, and then all of a sudden, Democrats go here, Republicans go there, and the separation began. And I know both sides, I talked to my Republican friends, we both got messages from the party leadership saying, well, Democrats, we don't want you working with these Republicans because that may help them in their reelection. You don't want to give them a good bullet point that goes on their brochure. And my Republican friends said they heard the same thing from their leadership as well. Putting party interests ahead of the interests of people and actually coming together to solve problems. This completely turned me off because that's not why I asked the people in my community for the privilege of serving them. They entrusted me with their vote so that I could go to Washington and fight hard for all of them, for every person in Hawaii and across this country. That's the kind of leadership that I bring, and it's the leadership that comes from the values instilled in me as a soldier, really, where in my unit, we have people from all across the country, all different political ideologies, race, religion, ethnicity, orientation. But as we stood together, both here at home and deployed to the Middle East, we stood as one and we spoke as one and we worked as one because we understood our mission was to serve our country, to serve the people. And that value of service above self is what is most important. That's the kind of leadership that I would bring, continuing the work that I've done in Congress, reaching across the aisle, again, focused on putting people first. That is what is necessary for leaders in this country and for us to come together and unify around the fact that, we love our country. We love each other. We care for each other. We care very much for our home. And if we come together and build bridges based on that unifying principle, putting politics aside and focusing on people, then we can really get things done. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thanks, Deborah. Next question comes from Rich Bruno.
Hi, good morning, Congresswoman.
Good morning.
Thank you for taking my question.
Thank you.
In your opening, you answered much of what my question is about. First of all, thank you for your military service.
My privilege.
We have something
Thank
in
you.
common. You were on foreign soil fighting a war, so was I in Vietnam.
Wow.
So it really is close to my heart with regard to the loss of life for our ground forces.
Yes.
We have some ongoing hot spots right now, and Yemen, Syria. What really would be your philosophy with regard to what's happening right now and the commitment of ground forces?
Yeah. Well, thank you for your service. When we talk about the cost of war, you have seen it firsthand, as I have. We have seen the loss of life of our brothers and sisters in uniform. We've seen our friends come home dealing with both visible and invisible wounds. We've got to stop trying to be the world's police, because we've seen from the war that you served in to the one that I served in how detrimental and costly that has been. Yes, to our men and women in uniform, to our families, military families, and to every single American in this country. What to speak of to the people in the countries where we are waging these wars. This is why I'm so committed to serve as president, to serve as commander-in-chief, to bring about this sea change in our foreign policy that will end these wasteful wars, bring our troops home, and take the trillions of dollars. We've spent over $6 trillion since 9/11 alone on these wars. And this is what breaks my heart so much, is because as I travel across the country, what I hear from folks at home and in big cities and small towns, people are saying, hey, our teachers need to get paid what they deserve to teach our kids. They need the supplies they need to make sure that our kids are getting the best education possible. We need health care for everyone who needs it, whether they can, they're making a lot of money or making a little bit of money. There are very real and urgent needs that we have, but time and time again, politicians tell them, sorry, there's just not enough money. Yet they write a check $4 billion every month to Afghanistan. That's what we're spending right now. I know this opioid epidemic, for example, is ravaging New Hampshire. It's ravaging so many people across this country. Yet we lack the kind of treatment, facilities, and opportunities for those who are victims of this epidemic. Told once again, sorry, there's just not enough money. Not enough money. This is why, again, I'll say it over and over, our foreign policy cannot be separated from our domestic policy. It's why it's so critical that we end these wasteful wars and redirect these resources towards serving these urgent needs of people here at home. So I want to close on one last thought on this, because too often, and it surprises me sometimes, but too often as I talk about ending these wasteful wars, people say, okay, so you're an isolationist then. You want us, the United States, to turn our back on the world and just mind our own business. No, that's not what I'm saying. And it's a sad state of affairs that by saying end wasteful wars, people assume that's isolationism, as though the only way we can relate with other countries in the world is by bombing them or by enacting crippling economic sanctions. That's wrong. That's wrong, and that's not the kind of leadership that we should be providing. The kind of leadership that I'll bring as president is one where we can be a positive influence and a force for good in the world, where instead of running around as the world's police, we can work with other countries towards that mutual goal that we have, which is peace and prosperity for all of our people.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Next question comes from Kenneth Berlin.
Welcome, Congresswoman.
Thank you. Good
Thank
to
you
see
for
you.
your service.
My privilege.
As we watch the debates, there are, as you know, 20 plus candidates. And when you have 3 to 4 minutes to say something, it doesn't really give you much of an education about what the candidate represents. So my question is, what makes you different from the other 2,700 or however many candidates there are, in terms of policy, in terms of how you would do certain things, for Medicare, things like that separate you from everybody else that's running? Because to me it seems like more of the candidates agree on things than disagree on things, which is good. But I'd like to know what makes you stand out.
We don't have time to go through every issue, but I want to talk about, I think, 2 overarching things that speak to the difference in the kind of leadership that I bring. And I agree with you, first of all. I mean, we're talking about the most important issues of our time, and to only give us 60 seconds to allow voters to make that decision and that judgment, I think, is a disservice to the voters in this country, because then what you're left with is really a soundbite. You deserve better than that. The 2 main things that I would like to point out are a little bit of what we've been discussing here. Because of the experience that I bring, I've served in Congress now for nearly 7 years, focused on national security, focused on the Foreign Affairs Committee, Armed Services Committee, Homeland Security Committee, as well as the experience that I have as a soldier. I've served now for over 16 years, still currently serving as a major in the National Guard, and deployed twice to the Middle East. And the most important responsibility that the president has is to serve as commander-in-chief. And the experience that I bring enables me to be prepared to do that job on day one. And why that's so critical is because we have suffered in the past in this country for the consequences of a president who is not prepared to do that job. And as a result, falls under the influence of the foreign policy establishment, the military-industrial complex, and even the uniformed general officers who will tell them what they should do. We need a president who has the experience, the understanding, and the conviction to always do what's best for the American people and what's in our national security interests. So that's I think, a big differentiating point between me and most of the other people who are running for president. I think the second one is I have and will continue to be focused on how we can bring our country together, putting those interests of the people ahead of party politics. I think it is a disservice to voters in this country how divisive our politics has become as people look towards their next election or how they can get more political power rather than actually just listening and serving the needs of the American people. This is something that is central to who I am and why I'm in this, and I will continue to lead focused on bringing the American people together, unifying our country based on the principles that our country was founded on, and ensuring that we have a government of, by, and for the people, standing up for those freedoms enshrined in our Constitution for every American, not just for those who agree with me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
thanks, Ken. Congresswoman, we have a social media question coming in here from Matt Carrier. He asks, where do you stand on term limits?
Term limits is an interesting question. I think it's a problem when you have, people who are more interested in making a career out of politics than those who are really interested in coming in and serving. I think this is a debate that the American people need to have, looking through what the consequences of those would be. I have heard from some folks in states who have enacted 1 or 2 term limits in their states and seen maybe an unintended negative consequence, whereas the elected official turns through, the turnover is very high. What ends up happening is you have the chiefs of staff or the hired staff, unelected people, who then hold the power and the influence. You have lobbyists then who are coming in, and instead of people talking to the elected official, they'll then go to the staff or the bureaucracy and wage their influence campaign there, knowing that the elected official is going to come in, maybe just stay for 2 or 4 years and lean heavily on the staff for advice and so on, making it so that the accountability is really not there because they're going to people who are behind the scenes and not accountable to voters. So I think as we have that debate, and I think it's an important one, we just have to consider what some unintended negative consequences will be.
Okay, and we've got about 30 seconds left. You're going to be off the campaign trail for 2 weeks serving.
Yes.
How are you going to campaign while you're gone?
I won't be able to campaign while I'm gone.
So what
I'm
happens
actually
with your
going
campaign?
on Monday. My orders start on Monday for my 2 weeks of Army training, so I'll be wearing a different uniform and relying on our supporters and our volunteers across the country to be able to continue to get our message out while I'm serving in a different way.
Okay, Congresswoman Gabbard, thank you
so
for
much.
doing Conversation with the Candidate.
Thank
This wraps
you.
our
Thank you all
televised
so
portion
much.
of the event. You can continue online and on our mobile app where more questions will be asked. We thank you for watching tonight.
Thank you very much.